When Rebecca Torres accidentally sent evidence of corporate fraud to the CEO instead of her lawyer, she never imagined that within 3 hours, a convoy of black SUVs would surround her apartment building, or that her entire life would change forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The steady hum of her laptop was the only sound in Rebecca's cramped studio apartment in downtown Seattle. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday, and she'd been reviewing financial documents for the past 5 hours, her eyes straining under the dim glow of her desk lamp. As a junior financial analyst at Meridian Tech Solutions, she'd grown accustomed to late nights, but tonight was different. Tonight, she was compiling evidence that could destroy her career or save it. Rebecca had discovered something she wasn't supposed to see. For the past 2 months, her direct supervisor, David Harrington, had been systematically falsifying quarterly reports, inflating revenue figures, and hiding losses that could potentially bankrupt the company. Worse, he'd been forging her digital signature on documents she'd never approved, making her an unwitting accomplice to securities fraud. She'd been gathering proof meticulously, screenshots, original files, email threads, timestamp comparisons, building an airtight case to present to her attorney, Mitchell Green, whom she'd consulted secretly. Her hands trembled as she attached the final compressed folder containing months of evidence to a text message. "Mitchell, here's everything. The pattern is clear. What should I do next?" she typed, her heart pounding. Without double-checking the recipient, exhausted and anxious, Rebecca hit send. The message showed as delivered. She exhaled, setting her phone down and rubbing her tired eyes. Finally, someone would know the truth. Someone could help her navigate this nightmare without losing everything she'd worked for. Then her phone buzzed with a response that made her blood run cold. "Miss Torres, this is Cameron Vale. We need to talk immediately. Do not contact anyone else about this matter." Rebecca's stomach dropped as she stared at the name. Cameron Vale, not Mitchell Green, her attorney. Cameron Vale, the 38-year-old CEO of Meridian Tech Solutions, a man so notoriously private that most employees had never seen him in person. A billionaire known for his ruthless business acquisitions and zero-tolerance policy for corporate misconduct. She'd just sent detailed evidence of internal fraud directly to the most powerful man in the company. No, no, no. Rebecca gasped, frantically tapping her phone, trying to unsend the message. But it was too late. The gray checkmarks confirmed her worst nightmare. He'd already seen it. Her phone lit up again. "Miss Torres, I've reviewed your files. This is extremely serious. Stay where you are. I'm sending security to your location for your protection. ETA, 15 minutes. Protection?" Rebecca's mind raced. Protection from what? From David? Or was this corporate damage control, silencing a whistleblower before she could go public? She jumped up, pacing her small apartment. Should she run? Call the police? Her lawyer? But the CEO had explicitly told her not to contact anyone. Every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. 12 minutes later, the distinctive rumble of multiple vehicles drew her attention to the window. Rebecca pulled back the curtain and felt her breath catch in her throat. 4 black SUVs with tinted windows had pulled up outside her building, forming a perimeter around the entrance. Men in dark suits emerged from the vehicles, speaking into earpieces, their professional demeanor unmistakable. This wasn't building security. This was executive-level protection detail. Her phone buzzed once more. "Miss Torres, my team is downstairs. Please come down. I'm in the second vehicle. You're not in trouble, but you may be in danger. We need to discuss what you've uncovered before tomorrow's board meeting." Rebecca stared at the message, her career flashing before her eyes. She was 26 years old, barely 8 months into her first major corporate position after years of struggling through night school while working multiple jobs. This opportunity at Meridian was supposed to be her breakthrough, her chance to finally build a stable life. Now she was either about to lose everything or expose a scandal that could bring down one of Seattle's fastest-growing tech companies. With shaking hands, she grabbed her jacket, slipped her laptop into her bag along with a backup flash drive of the evidence, and took one last look at her modest apartment. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back. The elevator descent felt like falling through ice. Each floor that passed brought Rebecca closer to a confrontation that could end her career before it truly began. Her reflection in the polished elevator doors showed a young woman in hastily thrown-on jeans and a sweater, her dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, looking nothing like someone prepared to meet a billionaire CEO at midnight. The lobby doors slid open, revealing her building's modest entrance. Through the glass, she could see the lead security officer waiting, his posture military precise. He nodded as she approached. "Miss Torres, Mr. Vale is waiting in the second vehicle. This way, please." Rebecca's legs felt unsteady as she walked toward the SUV. The rear door opened as she approached, and a voice from within spoke with quiet authority. "Please, get in, Miss Torres. You're safe." She slid into the leather interior, and the door closed behind her with a soft, decisive thud. Sitting across from her was Cameron Vale himself, and he looked nothing like the distant, cold figure she'd imagined from company rumors. He was younger than she expected, perhaps late 30s, with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to assess everything in an instant. Despite the late hour, he wore an immaculate charcoal suit, though his tie was loosened slightly. What struck Rebecca most was his expression, not anger, but intense focus mixed with something that looked like concern. "Mr. Vale, I'm so sorry," Rebecca began, her words tumbling out. "That message was meant for my attorney. I never intended." "I know exactly who it was meant for," Cameron interrupted, his tone measured but not unkind. "Mitchell Green, corporate attorney, specializes in whistleblower protection cases." He held up his phone, displaying her misdirected message. "What I need to know is whether everything in these files is accurate." Rebecca swallowed hard, then met his gaze directly. "Every single word. I have the original documents to prove it. David Harrington has been falsifying reports for at least 6 months, possibly longer. The Q3 earnings report he submitted last week, the revenue figures are inflated by nearly 40%. Something flickered in Cameron's eyes, not surprise, but confirmation. He tapped a button on the console beside him, and the privacy partition between them and the driver rose silently. "Show me everything," he said, leaning forward. "From the beginning." For the next 40 minutes, as the SUV glided through Seattle's empty downtown streets, Rebecca walked Cameron through her discovery. She showed him the original spreadsheets she'd created, then David's altered versions. She explained how she'd noticed discrepancies when client payment schedules didn't match reported revenues. How she'd started secretly keeping copies of everything after David began using her digital signature without permission. Cameron remained silent throughout, his expression unreadable as he examined each piece of evidence on her laptop. The only signs of his reaction were the occasional tightening of his jaw or the way his fingers would pause over a particularly damning document. "The Hamilton Industries contract," Rebecca continued, pulling up another file. "David reported $8.2 million in confirmed revenue. But I processed the actual contract. It's $4.9 million, and payment is deferred over 18 months. Not immediate," as he reported. "Why didn't you report this sooner?" Cameron finally asked, looking up from the evidence. Rebecca laughed bitterly. "To whom? David is the department head. His boss is Patricia Vance, who's been his mentor for a decade. I'm barely 8 months into my first real corporate job. Who would believe a junior analyst over a senior executive with 15 years at the company?" Cameron nodded slowly, seeming to process this. "And yet you documented everything with the precision of a forensic accountant. Why go through that effort if you thought nothing would come of it?" The question caught Rebecca off guard. She hadn't fully examined her own motivations. "I guess I needed to know I wasn't crazy, that the numbers really didn't add up. And maybe I hoped that someday someone would listen." Cameron's expression shifted, something like respect crossing his features. "Miss Torres, someone is listening now. But what you've uncovered is more serious than you realize." He pulled out a tablet and turned it toward her, displaying financial documents she'd never seen before. "David Harrington isn't working alone. These falsified reports? They've been used to secure a $200 million credit line from our banking partners. If the real numbers come to light before tomorrow's board meeting, Meridian could face immediate loan recalls, SEC investigations, and potential bankruptcy." Rebecca felt the blood drain from her face. "Tomorrow's board meeting? Where David is scheduled to present the Q4 projections," Cameron confirmed, his voice tight with controlled anger. Projections I'm now certain are equally fraudulent. He looked at her intently. Miss Torres, Rebecca, I need to ask you something crucial. Are you willing to help me expose this completely? The question hung between them in the confined space of the SUV. Rebecca's mind raced through the implications. Helping Cameron meant putting herself directly in the line of fire, potentially facing retaliation from David and anyone else involved in the fraud scheme. What exactly would that entail? She asked carefully. Cameron's expression grew more serious. Tomorrow's board meeting starts at 9 a.m. David will present his fraudulent projections to our board of directors and major investors. I need you to attend that meeting and present the truth, the real numbers, the evidence of falsification, everything. Before Rebecca could respond, Cameron's phone buzzed urgently. He glanced at the screen, and his jaw tightened. We have a more immediate problem. He turned the phone toward her, showing a security alert. Someone just attempted to access your apartment building using a maintenance override code. The attempt was flagged because it occurred outside normal hours. Rebecca's heart hammered. Who? Security is reviewing footage now, but the timestamp was 8 minutes ago. Cameron made a quick call, speaking in low, clipped tones. When he hung up, his expression was grim. A man matching David Harrington's description was seen entering your building through the service entrance. He's no longer on premises. Fear shot through Rebecca like ice water. He knows. He knows I found out. Your message to me may have triggered an alert if he's been monitoring your digital activity, Cameron explained, already typing rapidly on his phone. Rebecca, I need to be direct with you. Your apartment isn't safe tonight. David may have accessed your computer, planted surveillance, or worse. The SUV made a sharp turn, heading away from her neighborhood. Rebecca gripped the door handle. Where are we going? Somewhere secure where we can work through the evidence properly and prepare for tomorrow, Cameron said. He seemed to hesitate before continuing. I have a private residence in the Cascade Heights district. There's a separate guest house that's fully equipped and secure. You'd have complete privacy, and my security team would ensure your safety. Rebecca studied him, trying to read his intentions. Everything about this situation defied normal corporate protocol. CEOs didn't personally collect junior analysts at midnight. They didn't offer their guest houses or discuss fraud cases in the back of SUVs. Why are you doing this yourself? She asked bluntly. You could have sent your legal team, your security chief, anyone. Why come personally? Cameron was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried a weight of personal history. 6 years ago, my father built Meridian from nothing. He died believing he'd created something honest, something that mattered in the tech industry. I inherited this company at 32, and I made a promise at his funeral that I would protect his legacy. His eyes met hers with fierce intensity. Internal fraud, falsified reports, securities violations. This isn't just corporate misconduct, Rebecca. This is everything my father stood against. So yes, I handle it personally. The raw honesty in his voice surprised her. This wasn't the cold, distant CEO from company rumors. This was someone who genuinely cared about more than just profit margins. The guest house would be fine, Rebecca decided. Thank you. 20 minutes later, they arrived at an impressive modern estate nestled in Seattle's exclusive Cascade Heights. The main house was an architectural masterpiece of glass and stone, but Cameron directed her along a lit pathway to a smaller, beautifully designed guest house set among landscaped gardens. Inside, Rebecca found a spacious, elegantly furnished space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. A full kitchen, comfortable living area, and a staircase leading to what she assumed was a bedroom above. There's a secure Wi-Fi network, and everything you might need should be here, Cameron explained, maintaining a respectful distance near the doorway. My head of security, Thomas, will be stationed nearby. If you need anything at all, just call. He handed her a card with a direct number. Mr. Vale, Cameron, Rebecca said, using his first name for the first time. What happens if I present this evidence tomorrow and the board doesn't believe me? Or worse, what if they protect David to avoid the scandal? Cameron's expression hardened with determination. Then they'll have to fire me too, because I'm not backing down from this. Your evidence confirms suspicions I've had for months. I've been conducting my own quiet investigation, but I lacked the detailed proof you've compiled. He paused at the doorway. Get some rest if you can. We'll meet at 7 to prepare your presentation. Tomorrow, we bring the truth to light, together. After he left, Rebecca stood alone in the guest house, the events of the night crashing over her. 12 hours ago, she'd been a struggling junior analyst, afraid to speak up. Now she was preparing to expose corporate fraud in front of the company's most powerful people, with the CEO himself as her ally. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You've made a serious mistake, Rebecca. Withdraw your allegations by 6 a.m., or there will be consequences. This is your only warning." Her hands shook as she screenshot the message and immediately forwarded it to Cameron. His response came within seconds. "Forward to Thomas as well. You're not alone in this. Try to rest. Tomorrow we fight back." Morning light streamed through the guest house windows, pulling Rebecca from a fitful sleep. She'd managed maybe 3 hours of rest, her mind replaying the threatening text and today's, confrontation. Her phone showed 6:15 a.m. In less than 3 hours, she would either expose one of the biggest frauds in Meridian's history or destroy her own career trying. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Miss Torres, it's Thomas from security. Mr. Vale asked me to deliver these items for today's meeting." Rebecca opened the door to find a professional-looking man in his 50s holding a garment bag and a briefcase. His kind eyes and calm demeanor were reassuring. "Mr. Vale thought you might need appropriate attire for the board meeting," Thomas explained. "And this briefcase contains a tablet loaded with your evidence files in a secure presentation format. He's waiting in the main house whenever you're ready." 30 minutes later, dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that fit perfectly, Rebecca made her way to the main house. She found Cameron in a sleek home office, reviewing documents with intense concentration. He looked up as she entered, and something shifted in his expression, approval mixed with concern. "You look ready," he said, standing. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Rebecca admitted honestly. "That threatening text last night has been traced to a burner phone purchased 3 days ago with cash," Cameron interrupted. "My IT team is working on it. But more importantly, we've discovered something else." He pulled up security footage on his computer. "This was taken from your building's parking garage at 2:47 a.m. The grainy video showed David Harrington meeting with a woman Rebecca recognized immediately, Patricia Vance, the CFO and David's longtime mentor. "They're in this together," Rebecca breathed. "It's worse than that," Cameron said grimly. He displayed a series of financial transfers. "Patricia has been routing funds through shell companies David set up. The falsified reports weren't just about making the company look profitable. They've been embezzling money systematically. We're looking at approximately $15 million stolen over 2 years." The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. "Does the board know?" 3 board members arrive in an hour for an emergency session I've called before the main meeting," Cameron explained. "These are people I trust completely. Individuals who've been with Meridian since my father's time. They'll hear the evidence first. Then we'll confront David and Patricia in the full board meeting with legal counsel present." Cameron walked to the window, his posture tense. "Rebecca, I need you to understand what you're walking into. David and Patricia will attack your credibility viciously. They'll claim you're a disgruntled employee, that you fabricated evidence, that you're trying to advance your career by creating scandal. It will be brutal." "I know," Rebecca said quietly. "But the numbers don't lie, and I have the original files with forensic timestamps." Cameron turned to face her. "There's something else you should know. When this goes public, and it will, there will be media attention, potential legal proceedings, SEC investigations. Your life will change dramatically. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this?" Rebecca thought about all the late nights she'd spent double-checking her evidence, the fear she'd lived with for months, the principle of what was right versus what was easy. "My whole life, I've watched people get away with things because nobody was willing to stand up. I'm tired of being silent. So yes, I'm certain." The emergency board session began at 8 a.m. in Cameron's private conference room. 3 senior board members, Harold Chun, a silver-haired veteran investor, Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, a former tech executive, and James Blackwell, an attorney who'd worked with Cameron's father, listened with increasingly grave expressions as Rebecca presented her findings. She walked them through every detail methodically: the falsified revenue reports, the forged signatures, the inflated projections. When she finished, the room was heavy with silence. "This is damning," Harold finally said. "If even half of this is accurate, we're looking at securities fraud, embezzlement, and potential criminal charges." It's all accurate, Cameron confirmed. My team verified everything overnight. The question now is how we handle the confrontation in 90 minutes when David presents his fraudulent Q4 projections to the full board. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. We let him present. Let him commit to the lies publicly, on record, with everyone present. Then Rebecca presents the truth with us as witnesses. It's a risk, James cautioned. If this goes wrong, the company's reputation is already compromised by having thieves in executive positions, Cameron cut in sharply. We expose this now, cleanly and completely, or it eventually comes out in a way we can't control. I won't let my father's company be destroyed by corruption from within. At 8:50 a.m., they moved to the main boardroom, an impressive space with a massive table and panoramic views of Seattle. Board members and key investors began arriving, greeting each other with the casual confidence of people who had no idea their world was about to implode. David Harrington entered at 8:55, looking polished and self-assured in an expensive suit. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly when he saw Rebecca sitting near Cameron at the head of the table, but he recovered quickly, offering a condescending smile. Rebecca, I didn't realize junior analysts were invited to board meetings now, he said with barely concealed contempt. Miss Torres is here at my personal invitation, Cameron replied coolly. She has critical information relevant to today's discussions. Patricia Vance arrived moments later, her sharp gaze immediately assessing the room's unusual configuration. She exchanged a brief, loaded glance with David before taking her seat. At exactly 9 a.m., Cameron called the meeting to order. Thank you all for attending. Before we begin with standard agenda items, we have an urgent matter that requires immediate attention. He gestured to David. Mr. Harrington, please proceed with your Q4 projection presentation. I believe everyone is very interested in your forecasts. David stood, activating the presentation screen with the confidence of someone who believed he held all the cards. Absolutely, Mr. Vale. I think you'll all be very pleased with our projected growth. As David began presenting numbers Rebecca knew were completely fabricated, she felt Cameron's hand briefly touch her shoulder, a silent gesture of support. The trap was set. In approximately 15 minutes, everything would unravel. David's presentation was masterful in its deception. He spoke with polished confidence, projecting revenue growth of 35% for Q4, highlighting major client acquisitions that would supposedly push Meridian into the top tier of tech solution providers. Charts and graphs filled the screen, each one meticulously designed to tell a story of unprecedented success. Rebecca watched the board members nodding approvingly, completely unaware they were being fed lies. Her stomach churned with anxiety, but she kept her expression neutral, her hands folded calmly on the table despite the trembling she felt inside. In conclusion, David said, flashing a triumphant smile, Meridian Tech Solutions is positioned for our most profitable quarter in company history. I recommend we proceed with the expansion plans we've discussed and leverage this momentum for the upcoming investor conference. Applause rippled around the table. Patricia beamed with pride at her protégé's presentation. Impressive work, David, one board member commented. These numbers exceed even our most optimistic projections. Cameron remained expressionless. Thank you, Mr. Harrington. That was certainly illuminating. He paused deliberately. Miss Torres, would you please share your analysis of Mr. Harrington's projections? The room fell silent. David's confident smile faltered slightly. Patricia's eyes narrowed dangerously. Rebecca stood, connecting her tablet to the presentation system with hands that were steadier than she expected. Thank you, Mr. Vale. Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard was a comprehensive work of fiction. Excuse me. David's voice rose sharply. This is completely inappropriate. Rebecca is a junior analyst with barely 8 months' experience. She has no authority to. She has my authority, Cameron interrupted coldly. Sit down, Mr. Harrington. You'll have your opportunity to respond. Rebecca advanced to the next slide, showing David's projected revenue alongside the actual contracted amounts. The Hamilton Industries deal that Mr. Harrington claimed would generate $8.2 million in Q4. The actual contract amount is $4.9 million, with payments deferred over 18 months. I processed this contract personally. Murmurs erupted around the table. David's face flushed red. This is a misunderstanding of payment structures. The Velocity Systems acquisition he cited as a $12 million revenue generator. Rebecca continued, her voice growing stronger. That deal fell through 3 weeks ago. The client withdrew due to pricing disagreements. Here's the email chain confirming the cancellation. Emails Mr. Harrington received and never disclosed. She displayed the correspondence on screen. The board members leaned forward, studying the evidence with growing alarm. For the next 20 minutes, Rebecca systematically dismantled every claim in David's presentation. She showed the original financial documents alongside his altered versions, highlighted timestamp discrepancies, and demonstrated the pattern of inflation across multiple quarters. This isn't incompetence or optimistic projections, Rebecca concluded. This is deliberate, systematic fraud. Mr. Harrington has been falsifying reports for at least 18 months, using my digital signature without authorization, and presenting fabricated data to this board and to our banking partners. The room exploded into chaos. Board members spoke over each other, demanding explanations. David shot to his feet, his composure completely shattered. This is absurd. She's a disgruntled employee trying to sabotage. The server logs confirm every alteration Miss Torres has documented, Cameron stated, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Our IT forensics team spent the night verifying her findings. Every single claim she's made is backed by irrefutable digital evidence. Patricia stood abruptly, her face pale. Cameron, surely we can discuss this privately. There's no need to. To what? Hide corporate fraud from the board. Cameron's eyes were ice. Sit down, Patricia. We're not finished. He nodded to Rebecca, who advanced to her final slides, the evidence she discovered just that morning with Cameron's investigative team. The fraud extends beyond false reporting, Rebecca explained, her voice steady despite the tension crackling through the room. Mr. Harrington established shell companies that received payments from Meridian for fictitious consulting services. Those funds were then transferred to offshore accounts controlled by him, and she paused, meeting Patricia's horrified gaze, CFO Patricia Vance. The silence that followed was deafening. Over the past 2 years, approximately $15 million has been embezzled through this scheme, Rebecca continued. The falsified revenue reports served dual purposes, inflating company value to secure larger credit lines and concealing the missing funds within operating expenses. Harold Chin's face had gone from surprise to fury. Patricia, is this true? Patricia's lawyer instincts kicked in. I refuse to answer without legal counsel present. This entire proceeding is inappropriate. Your legal counsel is welcome, Cameron said. In fact, I insist on it. Because in approximately 5 minutes, the FBI's white-collar crime division will arrive to formally begin their investigation. He checked his watch. I contacted them at 6 a.m. this morning after reviewing Miss Torres's complete evidence package. David lunged toward Rebecca, his face contorted with rage. You destroyed everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? Security personnel who'd been standing discreetly by the doors moved instantly, restraining David as he tried to reach her. Cameron positioned himself between David and Rebecca, his protective stance unmistakable. What she's done, Cameron said quietly, dangerously, is save this company from criminals who would have destroyed it from within. Officers, please escort Mr. Harrington and Ms. Vance to separate conference rooms. They'll wait there for federal authorities. As David and Patricia were led away, David still shouting threats, Patricia silent and calculating, the remaining board members sat in stunned silence. Dr. Rodriguez was the first to speak. Cameron, the fallout from this will be significant. Stock prices, investor confidence, our banking relationships. We'll all survive because we're confronting this head-on rather than hiding it, Cameron responded firmly. We'll be transparent with regulators, cooperative with investigators, and we'll rebuild with integrity. Starting now, he turned to Rebecca, and his expression softened. Miss Torres, on behalf of Meridian Tech Solutions and my father's legacy, thank you. Your courage and integrity just saved this company. The next few hours blurred together, federal agents arriving, formal statements being recorded, emergency communications being drafted to investors and regulatory bodies. Throughout it all, Cameron remained at the center, directing the response with calm precision while ensuring Rebecca was protected from the chaos. It was nearly 6 p.m. when things finally quieted. Rebecca found herself back in Cameron's office, exhausted but somehow exhilarated. The board voted unanimously during the emergency session, Cameron said, handing her a formal letter. You're being promoted to senior financial analyst, effective immediately, with a compensation package that reflects both your new role and the extraordinary service you've provided the company. Rebecca stared at the document, barely processing the salary figure that was nearly triple her previous pay. Cameron, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he replied. You've already proven everything that matters. He hesitated, then continued with uncharacteristic uncertainty. There's something else I wanted to ask you, something completely separate from work. Rebecca looked up, surprised by the shift in his tone. Would you consider having dinner with me this weekend? Cameron asked, not as CEO and employee, but as two people who've been through something remarkable together. I'd like to get to know the woman brave enough to risk everything for what's right. A smile broke across Rebecca's tired face. 24 hours ago, she'd been a frightened junior analyst. Now she stood in the CEO's office, having exposed a multi-million-dollar fraud, with an offer that promised both professional success and something more personal. I'd like that, she said simply. 6 months later, Rebecca accepted an industry award for corporate ethics and whistleblower courage. As she stood at the podium, she caught Cameron's eye in the audience, no longer just her CEO, but her partner in both business and life. The accidental text that had once filled her with terror had become the catalyst for exposing corruption, advancing her career, and finding something she'd never expected, a connection with someone who valued truth as much as she did. The standing ovation washed over her as she thought about that terrifying midnight when black SUVs had surrounded her building. She'd believed her world was ending. Instead, it had been the beginning of everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.